What are we talking about?
You play to win the game. You don't play to just play. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm for you! Can't wait! Let's go!
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine on this beautiful Friday morning. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, how are you on this Friday?
I'm doing well. Heading into the NBA All-Star Weekend. We celebrate All-Star Weekend. We enjoy the festivities. And then it becomes a sprint to the finish line for seedings in the NBA. So I'm excited.
It's great to be a sports fan of multiple sports because, like you just pointed out, one season lends nicely into another. Obviously, if you are not a basketball fan, the end of football season is probably pretty depressing for you. But if you're a fan of football and basketball, once football wraps up, things start to ramp up in basketball. So it all works. It's like somebody planned it, Mo. It's like the sports gods got together and said, how do we make a schedule that works for everyone? And that's what we're looking at.
And they do it in the best way because as basketball ramps up, look, near and dear to you and JG, baseball slides in there. And there's this easy transition to where we're talking NBA and baseball. Then eventually we're talking just baseball for a while until football rounds this corner again. So I love the way that sports kind of blends into each other from season to season.
And hey, if you are a NASCAR fan, the Super Bowl of NASCAR is coming up as well. The Daytona 500 is just around the corner. So there's a lot going on in the world of sports. Mo, let's start the show with this. Actually, let's go here first. Taylor Swift. Big news from Taylor Swift yesterday. Taylor Swift is donating $100,000 to the family of the woman who lost her life in the senseless shooting that took place at the Kansas City parade. Obviously, you know, Taylor Swift is very much connected to the Kansas City Chiefs community because of her relationship with Travis Kelce. But Mo, I would just like to point out, she did not have to do that. There was nothing about this situation where she had to say anything, where she had to do anything, where she had to interject herself into the situation. But this is just another example of a truly good human being doing good human being things for other human beings. And, you know, I hate to beat a dead horse. And we've talked about this so much throughout the season that, you know, Taylor Swift is just a good person doing decent things for other people. And we talked about that with all the money she's brought into the NFL just by associating herself with the Chiefs. We've talked about that on other shows when every town she goes to on every stop of her Eras tour, she donates $100,000 to local food banks and local food pantries. Doesn't get a press for it, just does it and moves on. It's built into what she does whenever she hits a town. Not to mention the economic boost that her shows just being in cities give to the city. But again, that this wasn't something that was national news. It was a little blip, and I think that's how she wants it. I think she'd probably prefer it wasn't news at all.
Yeah, my guess.
But again, you know, just something that was a really tremendous gesture from someone that didn't need to make the gesture. So I thought that was very touching.
Shout out to Taylor Swift. Look, if she would have just displayed empathy about the situation, that would have been more than enough, right? If she'd just been, you know, my heart goes out to those people who've lost loved ones and who's been affected by this. To me, that's a lot. That's just being a human and a human reaction. For her to donate that money, and look, you can't replace a loved one. You can't replace a sister, a mother. You can't, but it is something going forward once they start to recover and get over their grief, that it will help sustain that family. It will put them in a better light to go forward in their lives.
Also, big news last night in the NCAA. So we've been counting this down. If you are a fan of women's college basketball, you knew this was going to happen. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. And this has been a countdown for the better part of the last 3 or 4 weeks, just kind of projecting when Caitlin Clark was going to set the record as the all-time leading scorer in women's college basketball. Mo, it happened last night in Iowa's game, and it happened in not dramatic fashion, but without question, spectacular fashion, as she drains a 3 from the logo to take the record and to take the title as the all-time leading scorer in women's college basketball. But Mo, that wasn't enough for her. She said, while I'm at it, while I'm doing things tonight, I might as well drop 49 and also set the mark for the all-time leading single game scorer in Iowa history. So she hits 2 marks last night. She hits the individual game mark for her school, Iowa, while also breaking the NCAA women's basketball mark for the all-time leading scorer. What an accomplishment for this young lady as she rounds up and finishes up her college career, and obviously is going to have a bright future in the WNBA. Terrific moment last night. She's signing, she's autographing the camera lens after it was just cool, Mo. It was a feel-good story. Sometimes we need those in the world of sports, and I don't think it could have happened to a better athlete or a better representative of women's athletics, because she has been absolutely tremendous throughout all of this.
No disagreement here. I love it that a lot of her peers shouted out her accomplishment on social media, acknowledging what she had accomplished. I love that kind of show of respect and camaraderie. So look, she's just beginning on where she can go. Like, her talent level is through the roof. I think that she's going to be box office for the WNBA. Look, no secret. I don't care who drafts her. I'm watching. I'll be watching. I watch her, and I remember my uncle always talking about Pistol Pete Maravich, and you go back and look at the old highlights of how he could shoot and play make and do everything. She can do everything he can do. She's that talented a player. So look, every accolade she gets is well deserved.
100%. Mo, interesting narrative coming out of San Francisco this morning. I doubt you will agree with this, but we are going to discuss it regardless. People are taking a look at what the San Francisco 49ers have gone through since 2011. Mo, you have lived this, so that this is just life for you. But 2011, 12, and 13, they lose 2 NFC title games in a Super Bowl in that run. And then if you look at what's happened since 2019, 2 Super Bowls lost, 2 NFC championships lost between 19 and this season. Obviously, there was a little lull between 2013 and 2019 as they were figuring things out over there in San Fran and not ultimately getting to the NFC championship game. But Mo, with Kyle Shanahan's record in the Super Bowl and with some of the things that he has done with the 49ers or has not done with the 49ers, it's not unrealistic to say, has he hit the ceiling? Has he hit the max? Should San Francisco start looking elsewhere? I don't have a conversation as a fan if you entertain that thought for 10 seconds. If for 10 seconds you want to say, is Shanahan the guy or not? Fine. Have a 10-second thought about it. End up on yes, we're good, and then move on. My issue, Mo, is we have people this morning who are saying that firing Kyle Shanahan is what needs to happen for the 49ers to reach that next step. And my only response to this, and it's a very simple response, and I would love to hear anyone's answer, who replaces him?
Yeah, where's the upgrade?
Right.
Where's the upgrade?
Because if you're going to fire Kyle Shanahan, you need to bring in somebody who is at least as good as Kyle Shanahan. And then you technically need to bring in someone better than Kyle Shanahan, because what you're saying is, Kyle, you get us to NFC title games, you get us to Super Bowls, but it's not good enough. We need to win one. So we need to let you go so we can bring in somebody who can actually get us a Super Bowl title. So, Mo, who is
Andy
that
Reid's
person?
Andy Reid's not walking through that
Andy
door.
Reid's not available. So
He's not.
who is that person? And I think the most common answer is Bill Belichick. If you bring in Bill Belichick is going to take us to where we need to go. And again, I'm not going to sit here this morning. I'm not going to bash Bill Belichick because his resume speaks for itself. But I look at the 49ers and I look at their offense and I look at what Kyle Shanahan does. And yes, he has had issues situationally in the playoffs. He has had issues situationally in Super Bowls. But when you look at his work as a whole, as an offensive mastermind, he has put together terrific offenses with what some people would describe as less than quarterbacks. I'm sorry, but not many people out there like Jimmy Garoppolo as much as I like Jimmy Garoppolo. They just don't. Not many people out there like Brock Purdy as much as you like Brock Purdy, Mo. They just don't.
True.
He is doing this, and not many people out there think Sam Darnold was the next Steve Young. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Well, I know we don't.
But he has done this without elite quarterback play, which is the point, right? So to the people who are saying bring Bill in as a head coach, because there's two arguments to this, actually. There's also people who are saying bring Bill in as a defensive coordinator. I don't know if Bill's ego will allow for that. If his ego would allow for that, maybe that's a conversation we have. Then the next question is, would Kyle's ego allow for that?
That would be the one.
I don't think you're getting two yeses. If the piece of paper just has two questions, question one, would Belichick's ego allow for him to be the defensive coordinator of the Niners? Yes or no? If that's a yes, I don't know if Shanahan's question, could Kyle Shanahan handle Bill Belichick as defensive coordinator? I don't think you get two yeses. I honestly think you get two no's, but I definitely don't think you get two yeses, all right? But the point is, there isn't a better option out there to replace Kyle Shanahan, maybe outside of Bill Belichick. And Mo, if you bring in Bill Belichick, I don't think the offense stays what it is. I think you lose what you have on offense while you gain a little bit on defense. But I think the loss on the offensive side of the football, because let's be honest, Bill Belichick isn't great with average quarterbacks. He just isn't. So if Bill Belichick is his normal Bill Belichick self with average quarterbacks, but he has a great defense, I don't think we're going to see early years Tom Brady. I think we're going to see year one Mac Jones, which is your quarterback puts up decent numbers, you make the playoffs, and that's about it. And I'm sorry, but with Kyle Shanahan, you already have more than that. With Kyle Shanahan, you are a consistent Super Bowl favorite and contender to be in the NFC Championship game season over season. So for me, here we are. We're keeping Shanahan, and we're getting a new defensive coordinator. And Mo, I want your opinion on this too. I think Colin Cowherd made a wonderful point yesterday. Look at the last two defensive coordinators prior to Wilks. It was DeMeco Ryans, and it was Robert Saleh. What do both of those guys have in common, Mo, personality-wise?
They're those intense kind of guys that are, they bond with their players. They're rah guys. They're hooah guys.
Is Wilks that guy?
He is not that type of guy.
He is not that guy. So Colin's point was pretty simple. Shanahan's not that guy either. That's why you need that guy defense-wise. So yes, Jory. They are also both bald. but Mo, Colin made a great point, because if the head coach isn't that guy and the defensive coordinator is that guy, you now have balance, right? And clearly the defensive coordinators being the rah-rah, the emotional, the fire it up, the bond with the players, it's worked for both of them because both of them are head coaches now.
Correct.
And Wilks is no longer employed. So maybe it's as simple, Mo, as we need to get another one of those rah-rah, big emotion guys in there to kind of set the balances off in the coaching aspect of the Niners. And then we just need a couple of breaks to fall the Niners' way, because I'm also a big advocate of this, Mo. luck plays a big part in winning a
It does.
championship.
I think
It
there's a
really
role in it.
does. It's a role. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm not saying they didn't deserve it, but how many teams fumble the ball 4 or 5 times, and most of them go right back? You know what I mean? Like, there's elements in there. There's elements. Look at the Niners in the game against Detroit, the catch off the helmet. You know, there's just little things here and there that you look at it and you're like, hey, lucky bounce, feel good about it, and you move on. And I would argue that, you know, with Kyle Shanahan's poor situational play calling, they also haven't been handed those lucky bounces in second halves of Super Bowls either. The other teams have kind of had the lucky bounces go their way. But at the end of the day, Mo, there is no better option for Kyle Shanahan. So I don't know how we're entertaining the conversation of getting rid of him.
I'm not, because I don't see the upgrade. And I would say this. We kind of say this really casually. It's hard to win Super Bowls. It is.
Yes, it is.
It's not casual. And because of social media, we're going to kill the guy who goes to multiple Super Bowls and loses. Even though if you go back to the 90s Bills and Marv Levy, and they went to 4 straight, and nobody kills Marv Levy. They say he's a great coach. But they did lose 4 Super Bowls, and nobody was like, we got to get rid of Marv Levy. He's the reason. You kind of ride that out.
That poor kicker in Buffalo is like
right.
the only, and he only lost 1 game. So they lose
just 1 game.
Straight. He loses 1 game for them, and he's like the only one who gets killed in Buffalo. It's like the other 3 losses, we can't blame anyone for those, but we're going to kill the kicker for the Giants game.
No, let's not blame Jim Kelly for all the picks, Thurman Thomas for the fumbles. Right.
No.
The defense, which was loaded with Pro Bowlers, giving up all those points. No. And look, I know you can easily go back and go, well, if they had have won that Giants game, maybe that changes their mental. And because it seemed like, look, I don't want to get too deep into the Bills thing, but after losing the first one, they literally got worse every Super Bowl after that. You know what I mean? Like you lose a cliffhanger, and that's like everybody's like, man, when they get back there and they got worse, and they literally mentally broke down over the course of years. Look, I say that to say this. As a Niners fan, yes, I've lived through the NFC Championship games. I've lived through the Super Bowl losses. But you ride those waves. I can remember when Kaepernick was the quarterback and what he did in NFC Championship games. I think he rushed for almost 180 yards one game against the Packers, and the Super Bowl against the Ravens. Like, we're right there, and like you said, it doesn't always go your way. I'm looking at what we've done in recent years, and they're like, well, it didn't go our way, Chris. But we also played against 2 iconic quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? Like, we lost to Tom Brady and we lost to Patrick Mahomes. Most people lose to Tom Brady and they lose to Patrick Mahomes. It's tough. You're going up against iconic quarterbacks, and even if the games are nail biters, which the Patriots games not so much, but my point is, if you look at what Shanahan has done and what you said about he's done more with lesser quarterbacks, he has. And I think Brock's a really good quarterback. And I think he will remain a really good quarterback. But he's not going to be the kind of quarterback, at least I don't believe, where we're going to be going Mahomes, Purdy, Burrow. I don't think we're going to say that. I think we're going to acknowledge how good Brock Purdy is. But I think he does have a ceiling the same way a guy who's a really good quarterback that gets killed a lot, Kirk Cousins, has a ceiling. It's tough to lose a Super Bowl. And it's funny because you know how fan bases are. Like, it's how you feel. It's how you feel about Buffalo. It's how you feel about Patriots or people like that. The Niners, especially this iteration of the Niners, because they talk a lot, they yap a lot, they've made themselves even less likable, right? And they stick their chats out, and they're living, I feel like they're living off of the Niners that won in the 80s and 90s, and they've won nothing. They've won nothing. And people delight. Like, don't we kill the Cowboys because we say, well, they haven't won a Super Bowl in 28 or 29 years? Well, newsflash, I believe my Niners haven't won a Super Bowl in 29 or 30 years. it's great to be relevant. It's great to have been in Super Bowls and compete for Super Bowls, but I'm a bottom line guy. We've been more relevant than Cowboys in terms of competing for Super Bowls, but the bottom line is we haven't won any. You know what I mean? We haven't won any, and I just think in the bigger picture, fans need to dial it down. Look, I think Kyle Shanahan has struggled in situational football, but you bring up a great point. There's been some balls that just didn't bounce his way that had nothing to do with his play calling or his ability as a head coach. He can't control what happens on that fumble, on that punt return. He can't. That's a thing. He can't control Christian McCaffrey fumbling. It happens sometimes. It doesn't go your way. And when you're playing against iconic quarterbacks, that kind of compounds your frustration or your ability to get over the hump. I think the Niners are going to remain relevant. I don't know. I truly don't know as a Niners fan, though, if they're going to get back to the Super Bowl because the NFC is getting better with younger quarterbacks in their own right when you're looking at what Green Bay is going to do, when you're looking at what Detroit's going to do. I think the Rams, your Rams, are going to be better next season. So it's not going to be easy. The Eagles will be back. It's not going to be easy to get back to the Super Bowl coming out of the NFC. And in the AFC, we already said it. We know where the Super Bowl runs through. I don't care if he's on the road. It runs through Kansas City. And I think they're going to be, at least on paper, they're going to be better because they're going to go out and get another receiver. They are. They're going to go out and get some more weapons. So it's tough. It's frustrating. But isn't that part of being a sports fan? You're a Dolphins fan. You know the frustrating when you feel like we're right there and you get but so close. And it's like, what's that line in the Mafia movie? Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. I feel like we've gotten so close. And I've heard people say, like, well, I'd rather just get blown out than lose in a close game. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't. I'd rather be right there, feeling like I have a shot. And then and you get that gut punched, right? When he kicks that field goal last Sunday, Chris, my head sunk. When he kicks that field goal, my head sunk because I realized in that moment that we had lost the Super Bowl. And that's tough. That's tough. Even when my wife was like, you can keep watching it. You can keep watching it. And I'm like, yeah, I already know what he's going to do. And I'm not facing the TV, but I can hear the roar. And and she goes, how'd you know that? I go, I've seen it.
Mo, I appreciate the respect, but us Dolphin fans just want to win a playoff game. We haven't done that since the year 2001 against the Indianapolis Colts. So we are not in that same conversation. We just want to win a playoff game. We've only been there 3 times since 2001. So hey, but 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row.
Let me ask you something, just out of curiosity. I hear what you're saying, but right now, we're just doing a hypothetical. My coach for your coach, you take that trade-off?
I would take your coach over my coach. Your coach made my coach.
Maybe so, but I think your coach has got well, I don't want to say what I want to say on the air, but I think he's just got I just think he has more of it. I'll leave it at that.
But interestingly enough, I think there is a similarity between our coaches in that situationally they both struggle. When McDaniel plays against better defenses, he becomes very Tyreek reliant. Whereas when he plays against weaker defenses, you see him spread the ball around more. So I think there is something to that Shanahan coaching tree style technique, however you want to look at it.
I can see that.
And I think it's something that both of them need to work on, especially down in Miami. But Mo, let's pivot to this. We don't bash people a lot here on the morning show unless it's Josh Allen or the people who were voting for Comeback Player of the Year. Not that I care about the award, I just care about the process.
You don't care.
But every now and then, something completely ridiculous pops up elsewhere in the sports media world, and it needs to be discussed. And the other day, Mike Greenburg on Get Up released a list of the top 5 quarterbacks that he thinks are going to win their first Super Bowl next. So he took 5 quarterbacks who have never won a Super Bowl, and he ranked them 1st through 5th of who has the best chance of winning their first Super Bowl championship next. I'm going to give you his list in inverse order because once we get to number 1, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. So at number 5, he has Herbert. At number 4, he has Lamar Jackson. At number 3, he has Joe Burrow. At number 2, he has Brock Purdy. So far it sounds pretty good. And then he gets to number 1, and it's Jordan Love. Now, I am not going to take anything away from what Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers did this season. He had a very nice season as a 3rd or 4th year player. So good for you, Jordan Love.
Play well.
I don't know how we're going to sit here and have a conversation this morning that he is in a better position to win his first Super Bowl than the guy who just got to the Super Bowl, than the guy who just was played in back-to-back NFC Championship games. I don't know how you're going to sit here and tell me that Jordan Love's in a better position to win a Super Bowl than the only guy who has really stopped Joe Burrow with any level of consistency stop Patrick Mahomes with any level of consistency, and that is Joe Burrow. He's beaten him in the playoffs. He's beaten him in the regular season. Not many quarterbacks have consistently done that, Mo. Lamar Jackson, whatever, fine. You want to put Jordan Love ahead of Lamar Jackson, I'll give you that because I think Lamar Jackson is a terrible playoff quarterback. So you all know my issues with Lamar Jackson. I'll give you that. I still think you're wrong. I think Lamar Jackson is tremendously more talented than Jordan Love.
Agreed.
And I also think that the Ravens as a team are tremendously more talented than the Green Bay Packers. But if you want to tell me that Love's path to a Super Bowl is easier than Lamar's path to a Super Bowl, I'll say sure, because the NFC isn't all that compared to the AFC. So I'll give you that. But I'm not going to give you Herbert, not with Harbaugh coming in, not with the potential that team has. I would say that if you look at it right now, the potential of the Chargers next season with Harbaugh has a higher ceiling than what the Green Bay Packers have, despite what we saw with them this season. So, Mo, I look at this list, and best case scenario, I would have Love 4th. But honestly, I would probably have him 5th behind Lamar Jackson. And I don't even know who 6th would be, but I haven't gotten that far. But I might even have 6th ahead of him. Again, it's nothing against Jordan Love, but there is a big difference, Mo, between putting together a good team, competing for your division, and making the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl. Like, that is a huge leap. And when you're talking about 2 quarterbacks on this list who have already been there, who have already played in Super Bowls, in Brock Purdy and Joe Burrow, and you want to tell me that a quarterback that has had one season, and it was a good season, but one season, didn't make the NFC Championship game that season, one decent season, he's going to be, it makes no sense to me, Mal. It makes no sense to me at all.
And look, we acknowledge the season that Jordan Love had.
It was good.
But is it going to be sustainable, right? Because what they did is they went on a run. And whether you're a Cowboy fan or not, most of us would agree when they beat the Cowboys, that was a huge upset, right? They played well, but we also thought the Cowboys underachieved. They didn't play up to their potential.
No one thought Green Bay was going to win that game outside of Green Bay fans. Vegas didn't think it. No one, everyone, the consensus going into that game, Mo, was Dallas is going to steamroll them. Great season for Green Bay. Dallas is going to bury them. It is what it is. They play great at home. Move on. But Mo, that's the guy that no one really favored to win a playoff game this season. He's your next Super Bowl champ out of those 5.
So for me, I need more resume and I need more of a career. Like I think what I saw from Green Bay was he had a great season. They had a great run. Right. But are they going to turn back around and be one of the better teams in the NFC? I have to believe the Eagles will be better, that the Cowboys will be back. I think my Niners will be in the picture. I think you have to look at the Rams starting off the season well and healthy and whole with more weapons as a scary prospect. So I don't understand like how you can overlook all those obstacles with that particular quarterback who's a good quarterback, but we don't know if what we saw this season, Chris, is who he is going forward, or was that a one-off the same way Geno Smith had that monstrous season the year before last and he kind of came back down to earth. He was still a solid quarterback, but he wasn't what he looked like an elite quarterback that season. I just think people are quick to project off of one season, and I need to see more.
It's so much of being a prisoner of the moment. You look at the good season that he had, and let's be honest, coming into the year, we didn't think he was going to be a great quarterback, because why would we? Coming out of the Aaron Rodgers era in Green Bay, you heard nothing about Jordan Love. There wasn't great practice film of him just doing amazing things. There were no hype reels coming out. Everyone was kind of lukewarm when they talked about Jordan Love during training camp and practice and everything that he looked like his 2 or 3 seasons sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. So there wasn't a lot of pomp and circumstance when he came out and started this season. And then the season was a little rough at times. He got off to a nice start. He had some bumps in the road in the middle. He played great football down the stretch. His last 5 or 6 games, I would argue that he played top 5 football if you're looking at the other quarterbacks in the NFL. But Mo, I don't know how we take a 5 or 6 game stretch where he played great football, an upset playoff win, which one could very easily, and again, I know we don't criticize wins, but it's kind of tough when you're taking a team that was favorited that much and not being like, they had something to do with them losing. You know what I mean? Like, the Cowboys definitely played a role in getting blown out in that game. Let's be honest. So you take a 5 or 6 game stretch where he's great. You take one upset playoff win, and now you're saying, he's definitely going to get a ring before Brock Purdy, who was just there this season and was almost there 2 seasons ago. He's definitely going to get a ring before Joe Burrow, who, he has a lot of injury history, but that one season where he wasn't hurt, he went to the Super Bowl. He's definitely getting a ring before those. He's definitely getting a ring before the 2-time MVP, Lamar.
Right.
The only one on this list who doesn't have the accolades is Herbert. That's the only one where if you just line up everything these quarterbacks have accomplished, you can look at it on paper and go, he's better than Herbert. Okay. Herbert hasn't accomplished anything. But the other guy, 2 have been to Super Bowls, and one's a 2-time MVP. And you want to tell me after a 5 or 6 game stretch of being great, he's going to catapult? It makes no sense to me, Mo. You're caught up in the moment. You're a prisoner of what he did those last 5 or 6 games. And I'll tell you right now, let's not forget, Mo, who won their division.
Right. That's the crazy part.
He didn't even win his division.
They didn't win the division at all.
He wasn't the best quarterback in his division this season. That was Jared Goff. And
and nobody's talking about Jared Goff. And it's funny because I think most people, if you were going to say there's a team to watch who might project and catapult, it would be the Lions. It would be the Lions. And I don't know how old Jared Goff is. He might be 30. He might still be in his 20s. I think he's got to be a fairly young man still. So why aren't we talking about Jared Goff and the Lions?
And Jordan Love's ceiling is probably higher than Jared Goff's. I'll give you that.
I got you that. Talent-wise, no doubt.
Jared Goff was the better quarterback this season. And I would argue that on a normal Kirk Cousins year, Kirk Cousins is probably going to put up the same numbers, if not better numbers, than Jordan Love. Oh, and by the way, let's not forget what the Chicago Bears have going on. They could be trading, or they could be drafting Caleb Williams, and his ceiling is through the roof. So I'm not even sure where Jordan Love ranks in that division as far as being the best quarterback going into next season. Because as much as you want to make an argument that he is the best quarterback in that division, I can entertain an argument that if the Vikings re-sign Kirk Cousins and the Bears draft Caleb Williams, Jordan Love could be the worst quarterback in that division. That's not out of the conversation, Mo.
Real quick, too. And the crazy part is, let's not forget, when you have the kind of success that they had in the playoffs, that schedule that comes out next year, they're going to have a tougher schedule, right? And they're going to be the hunted. When you do what he did and what the Packers did, the expectations, they will be through the roof, and that, to me, that adds on to the prisoner in the moment thing. I can't predict the Packers season. No one can, but I can tell you this: I find it hard to believe that he will win a Super Bowl before the other guys on that list, and the guy that's not on that list, Jared Goff, by the way, who's already played in a Super Bowl.
That's correct. Just saying. Mo, let's pivot to the New England Patriots. I think we can agree that Mac Jones deserves to be below Jordan Love on this list. Is that fair?
It's tight, but
it's tight.
No, yeah. No, no question.
So we knew that once Bill Belichick left New England, we were going to have moments between now and the start of next season where little tidbits came out, right? Little tidbits about what was really happening in their last season, what was the actual drama with the Patriots organization. And we knew we were going to get some stuff as they transition, and we're starting to get some stuff. And what we got earlier this week was a little tidbit in relation to the quarterback room, the relationship between Mac Jones and Bailey Zappe, but more importantly, the relationship between Mac Jones and apparently the majority of the Patriots locker room. A report came out from New England that the quarterback room was so toxic in New England because of Mac Jones for various different reasons that Bailey Zappe wouldn't even watch film in the quarterback room. He would go to the wide receiver room and hang out with them to watch film because of what was going on in the quarterback room. Now, for those of you who have never thought about this or are not aware of this, if you've watched Hard Knocks, you've seen what the quarterback room looks like. There aren't many guys in there, Mo. It's usually your quarterback coach. Every now and then you might get your offensive coordinator in there. And then you have usually 3 quarterbacks, maybe 4, depending on what you got going on in the practice squad. Right. But usually you got 3 guys in there. So, for example, Hard Knocks in season, the Dolphins quarterback room every week on the show, it was basically the same 4 guys. You would get your quarterback coach in there. You would get sometimes your offensive coordinator in there. And then you would get your 3 quarterbacks. You got Tua, then you got your backup, and then you got your 3rd string. There aren't many guys in the room. If there's only 5 guys in the room and one of them hates you, it's a very confined space to be in, Mo.
Yes,
so if Mac Jones is really making these waves, and clearly he was if Bailey Zappe felt he had to go hang out with the wide receivers, then that seems a little awkward. That seems a little uncomfortable. And it's interesting because we always felt that the one thing the Patriots had going for them was the culture. It was the Patriot way. Right. It was the way of a champion. It was the winning formula. It was nothing gets out of New England. We never know what anyone's actually thinking. And clearly, in the final years of Belichick being there, that definitely slipped away. And again, I hate to be that guy, Mo, but I'm going to be him. I come back to the question that I'm going to always continue to put forth. How much of it was Tom Brady? Because you want to sit here and you want to say Bill Belichick way, Patriot way. Okay, well, remove Tom Brady from that equation and insert other quarterbacks. And now things are falling apart, not just on the field, but in meetings, with the chemistry of the team, with the vibe of the locker room. We've seen Tom. We know how Tom interacts with people. Tom talks to everyone. Tom talks to the defense. Tom talks to the special teams. Tom will call anybody out that he feels he needs to call out. Tom is a presence in a locker room. Tom is a presence on a team. So you look at this and you hear the stories, Mo, and you have to also, it's a fair question. And I'm not saying Bill Belichick had nothing to do with it. I'm not saying that, Bill Belichick's mindset and his personality were definitely not the mindset in the personality of that team. And Mo, I will be the first one to tell you, I also believe that Tom Brady thrived under the rigidness of Bill Belichick. But don't sit here and tell me and try to make me believe for 1 second that Tom Brady was not a huge part of that culture, because I truly think that he was.
I agree with you. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think that Tom Brady, when he became the starter, he was a system player. He was part of that culture. He grew up in that culture until he became the system. He became the guy. I would argue that he became the culture. I think that there were years where it was all Belichick and Brady was his co-pilot, and then Brady took over. He took the helm, and it was all Brady. And Belichick became a complement to Brady. That's the impact. That's the presence that Tom Brady had. And you're right. If you have a quarterback room and one of the quarterbacks is Tom Brady, everybody's in their playbook or everybody's watching film. My guess is everybody's listening, locked in on what's going on, whether you're best buddies or not. I guarantee you that quarterback room is focused. And I think a lot was lost when he left, because it's not just you lose a starting quarterback, you lost an iconic starting quarterback who everybody, offense and defense, looked to. He was a leader. He was a presence. And you can't replace that. It's funny because I remember there was a point in time where they were seriously trying to replace Tom Brady with Jimmy Garoppolo. Bill Belichick thought Jimmy Garoppolo could be the next guy within that system. He was confident of that. Robert Kraft didn't agree with that, and Brady and Robert Kraft kind of said, get rid of that guy. They got rid of that guy because that's the impact and the influence that Tom Brady had on that franchise. I'm taking nothing away from Bill Belichick, but you brought it up. Life without Tom Brady has been completely different. Life without Tom Brady, he's no longer the coach of the New England Patriots. I'm just saying. I'm not taking away that he's not one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach of all time, but without Tom Brady, he was pretty below average.
Well, before we leave our football conversation this morning, if you are a video game fan out there, EA Sports has released a teaser trailer for NCAA 25. It is the first college football game in over decade, Mo.
I've been waiting.
A decade. How pumped are you?
I believe the last one, I think you're right. I think it was 14. I have it. I have the last one. And here's the crazy part about the last one. If you put it up for sale, do you know how many people would buy it? Like, it's become like a thing because no one knew whether it was coming back or not. And what people were doing was people were still playing NCAA because obviously you get to be a college and you can just go through the multiple seasons and stuff. So people were still playing it because no one thought it would come back. And when we found out that it was coming back, people lost their mind because the truth is, as a Madden fan, if you've ever played Madden, like I always tell people, Madden is a rite of passage. But as far as gameplay goes, NCAA was actually always a beat ahead of Madden.
Mo, what was 14 on? Was that PS3? Xbox 360? What consoles were happening back in 2014?
I think it was 360. I want to say 360.
360 and PS3? That's wild. Mm-hmm. Or was PS4? Was it? I don't know.
It might have been 3, but it was definitely 360. And that's crazy because look at where the consoles are now.
Right,
like,
right.
I mean, it's insane to think about where they are now. And I'm sure the graphics on it probably look so realistic like that. They just make it better and better. I actually enjoy playing it more from the standpoint of, you get to be the coach and you've got to go to the parents and you've got to recruit and do all that. I actually enjoy that. Now, granted, I don't know what it's going to be like now.
What's it going to look like now?
Right, because now there's NIL, so I don't know if the kid's going to be sitting there like talking about like, yeah, I get it. Your program has won some championships, but what are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for me?
Now, couldn't you upload your NCAA class into Madden as well?
You could. Your graduating class, you could do that. Yep. And I remember doing that with a couple of linebackers and running backs, and it was fun. It was fun. The guys that I had developed through the college program, so it was fun.
I like that. I like that a lot. So yeah, so if you haven't seen that already, make sure you go check that out. It already has tons and tons of views over on YouTube. Obviously, people are very excited about that. Mo, we got a little wrestling to discuss this morning.
Wrestling.
Obviously, things have pivoted a little bit in the WWE. The fans see, and I have an issue with this. I'm going to tell you why I have an issue with this. For years, fans have wanted to see Rock Roman, okay? And then WWE gives it to them, but they didn't want him to jump Cody. So because they want Cody to finish the story, they revolt against the Rock Roman idea as if they never wanted it in the first. Like, stop lying. Like, can we just have an honest conversation? Everybody wanted to see Rock Roman, and everybody mostly still wants to see Rock Roman. You just want to see Cody first. Which, by the way, the Rock Roman conversations were happening long before the Cody Rhodes conversation was happening. He was still in AEW when the Rock Roman conversations began happening. So let's not pretend that this hasn't been in the works longer than Cody Rhodes. But I digress, because it looks like we are going in a different direction now, Mo. And with that, I want to present this to you. I don't know if you saw SmackDown last week, but on SmackDown last week, a couple of tweaks happened. Tweak number one, when Triple H, last couple of years, when he is announced to the ring, as Paul Levesque.
I noticed that.
Because he is no longer an active wrestler. He is an executive now, so he uses his real name. Now, sure, he is still referred to on TV at times as Triple H or as Hunter, but when he's announced to the ring, he's announced as Paul Levesque. Not this past week on SmackDown. This past week on SmackDown, he was announced as Paul Triple H Levesque. So they are inserting his ring name back into his announcement when he comes to the ring. That's number one. Number two, he took like 6 shots at The Rock on SmackDown for no reason, for absolutely no reason. So, Mo, I have to ask you, are we going to see Triple H versus The Rock? They teased this about 10 years ago. I think it was 8, 9, 10 years ago. The Rock was randomly on Raw, and him and Triple H cut this crazy promo backstage about how if they went one more time at WrestleMania, and they both got all their catchphrases into it. It was pretty funny. That's actually that's up on our TikTok right now if you want to go check that out. But it was great. It was absolutely fantastic. And then we stopped talking about it because obviously a bunch of other things happened. Mo, are you signing up to see Triple H Rock one more time? Because think about it before you answer. If we get Triple H Rock, then we're going to get Cody Reigns. And then I don't know what Seth is going to do, but Seth is going to do something. It opens the door for everything we talked about a couple of weeks ago. It opens the door for heel Rock to screw Cody and push this thing out. I'm just saying. So let's start there.
You're onto something.
Triple H Rock. I want to see it.
I think we get Triple H Rock. I'm signing up for it because I think it's as if you're in the writer's room. I think everything you're saying, I think is going to come to fruition some kind of way. I think heel Rock, no matter what happens in the match with Triple H, heel Rock is going to cost Cody the match versus Reigns. Heel Rock will be the head of the table, but Reigns will be the Universal Champion. And I think, like Reigns alluded to, this is closer to the beginning than the end. I think they can string this out for a while. And look, I remember Rock as a heel. He's one of the, like I said, there are certain guys who can make it work on both sides. He can make it work. He can make you hate him, but love him while hating him at the same time. And I also think that Triple H and Rock is one of the most underrated rivalries in the history of WWE. It's one of the great rivalries. Like, they kind of came up and hit that peak at the same time. And I remember even during the when they were like really younger and at their peak, and they were going through the Attitude Era where they were going back and forth, and they cut a promo. And I don't know if it's the one you're talking about, but this is one when they were younger, and Rock was he was going through Flair's line, and he was going through other people's line, and Triple H cut him off and said, "Yours is no better." And they would go back and forth, and Triple H did that bit about being the Croc. Remember that? And he had the eyebrow and all like that.
Yep.
I love stuff like that because both of these guys have a great sense of humor. They can get on the mic and go at each other. And of course, they're great in the ring performers. I'm signing up for all of this.
And Triple H is my favorite wrestler of all time, hands down.
People rank. Look, I think Ric Flair is one of the 5 greatest wrestlers ever, but I think Triple H is ahead of Ric Flair.
Triple H is my all-time favorite wrestler. I loved the Evolution stuff. I loved heel Triple H. I was proudly the only guy at events cheering for Triple H when he was a heel and he was in Evolution. I supported Triple H through the bike short days when he was injured and he couldn't work out and he put on the weight and he didn't want to show off the legs. Right. I was with him for all of that, Mo.
Loved him in DX. I loved all that stuff. Like it's interesting because I watched him from when he was introduced as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and he would come out and he came out and did the bow, and he was the snob and stuff. And I was like, I was like, yeah, this Helmsley guy, you can tell he can wrestle, but I didn't like the Helmsley bit, and I love how he evolved from that. And they evolved because Rock's was even cornier. He was Rocky Maivia. That was so lame.
Well, Triple H was terrorizing when he first came in.
Right. Hey, look, but we all have to find our inner guy. I remember when Stone Cold was stunning Steve Austin.
Yep.
And then I thought he was kind of lame back then. So you got to find your inner guy.
Before we get out of here, let's wrap up with some NBA stuff. Send you guys to the weekend on a basketball note. For the first time since his rookie season, Klay Thompson comes off the bench last night for the Golden State Warriors. And Mo, all he did was score 18 straight points at one time during that game. So, game one of Klay in the second back half of his career coming off the bench went pretty well. If you are a Golden State fan, obviously, and I don't think Golden State will ever get over this issue. For the entire run of Steph Curry's time there, they get big leads and they blow big leads consistently. They did it 2 nights ago against the Clippers. They lost that game. They did it last night against Utah. They hung on and won that game. The Golden State Warriors are always going to blow a lead. It doesn't matter if it's 12, 14, 16 points. If they're up double digits, it's probably not going to end that way because for whatever reason in their DNA, the way they play the style of basketball, that's what happens. But 18 straight from Klay last night, Mo. I mean,
that was big.
It's one game, but clearly, his mindset, he's not down in the dumps about coming off the bench, and that's a positive sign for the Warriors.
It is. And for a star to come to terms with his NBA mortality, realizing like I'm not what I was, but I can still help this team. I love that for Klay. And I want Klay to be successful. Look, Klay Thompson might turn around as a reserve. He may end up winning like a couple of 6 Man of the Year awards before his career's over, right? It wouldn't shock me because this will free him up more because he's playing against obviously secondary guys. So I think he can have a bigger impact that way. And I'm rooting for Klay. I'm not a Warriors fan per se, but I am a Steph fan. I am a Klay fan. So I hope this works out going forward.
Mo, 43 games into the NBA season, the Milwaukee Bucks had 13 losses. 10 games into the Doc Rivers era, and they already have 7. It's not going well in Milwaukee, Mo.
I don't look. They got blown out the night before last. Like they got the game Brett went to. My partner, the resident Milwaukee Bucks fans, he went there and they got destroyed at home. Then they go on the road against a Grizzlies team that is missing everybody. I mean, if you could not have named who was on the floor for the Grizzlies, you couldn't have called them out in the lineup, and that team beat them outright. And I watched that. We started the N1 podcast, and I blew it off like, well, Milwaukee's going to pay the Grizz, so they're going to blow them out in the first half. That's going to be done with. And then in the middle of the podcast, Gene calls in the chat and goes, Milwaukee's losing to the Grizzlies. And I'm like, what? And Brett's like, what? Like, I'm like, as soon as the show's over, I got to go watch the game. I went and watched that game. Milwaukee actually got back in it, took the lead, could not hold the lead. Guys that I do not know their names was raining threes on the Grizzlies. And you look at Milwaukee, and the offense isn't the problem. I keep harping on it because it's a fact. I don't care who the coach is. The coach can't make them younger. It doesn't work that way. They are a slow and old team. They are. And while Dame's not old, he's not a defender. He just doesn't compete well on the defensive end. And Giannis, he looks worn down because I think he's doing a little bit of everything, but they're old and slow. And going into the playoffs, the blueprint for Milwaukee or beating Milwaukee, you pick up the pace and you attack them because you can do that. We always talk about shooting as a premium in the NBA, Chris, but another premium is shot creation. Look at their roster. Dame can get his own shot. Giannis can get his own shot. That's it. There are no other players on that roster that can create for themselves or others. They're very vanilla in what they do. It's funny because I think more and more as we get through this next regime of the Bucks, we're going to start appreciating Budenholzer a lot more, right, as a coach, because he knew he knew what he had and he knew where to put them in their best spots. They just got exposed as a slow and unathletic team, and I'm not rooting against Doc, but it's not set up for Doc to do well. Like, if you think about the move they made, you didn't bring Dame to team up with Giannis to lose in the first round. You didn't bring him there to win a conference championship. That move is we either win the finals or it's a failure.
And we blow it up.
Right, and we blow it up. And look, it's closer to that than them winning the finals.
Well, we know NBA playoff basketball is not complicated. Who can get a basket? Who can get a stop? And then it's situational coaching and situational playmaking. They can't get a stop. They have a couple guys who can get a basket, but what you're seeing and what you saw last night is the wear on the defensive side of the ball because they're older, because they're not as athletic. It takes a toll on the offensive side of the ball. Dame was locked down at the end of that game, not because he was being covered by guys that were necessarily better than him, but I think it was a toll of the entire game on him where he was doing more than he probably should have been asked to do on the defensive side of the ball. They were trying to overcompensate for what they don't have on the defensive side of the ball. And that is going to have a ripple effect onto your offense at times as well. And when it's not going the way it should be going, this is what you get. 3-7 in 10 games. He has lost half the amount of games the other guy lost in 43 in 25% of the games played. It's ridiculous. Well, you're looking at a team that's going to be knocked out in the first round. At this point, they're not getting past the first round.
I honestly,
unless something drastically changes.
Look, if this is who they're going to be, this roster construction, who they're going to be, and look, we've already been through free agency, we've already been through the trade deadline, we've already been through the buyout market. I don't see where they're going. They're going to go into the postseason with this roster.
Scheme. The only thing that can change now is scheme and what it looks like on the floor. And we talked about this before. Doc is not an X and O's guy. He isn't a scheme guy. He isn't a formation guy. He's the rah-rah guy. So unless something happens with the style of play and what it looks like on the floor, I don't see how they change between now and the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part if you're that team, because if you say, well, let's slow down the pace of the game, let's walk it up and make it more of a grind, you can do that, but then that's more wear and tear on Giannis and Dame if you do that. And so the scores will be lower, but your offense will be less efficient. Look, one of Giannis's superpowers is what he can do in transition. If you take that away from him, he's a lesser player. So I don't think they can slow down the pace either. I just think this is going to be a team that's going to have a disappointing end to their season, and then suddenly you're going to go from superpower to they're going to blow it up because Giannis is going to get to the offseason and he's going to start talking about, well, I thought they were committed, and this and that. He's going to start making those what do you call it, cryptic sayings like, I'm not saying I don't love it here, but I want to win a championship, and they're going to blow it up.
They're going to fire Doc Rivers. They're going to bring in their 4th coach in like 2 seasons.
My God, they're going to fire Doc. They're going to fire. Doc is going to be back up in the booth at ESPN.
Mo, close us out, sir.
Thank you guys so much for being in the chat. Chris and I appreciate your support. Thank you to everybody that's watching us live, everybody who will watch us later. Check out all the great content that we have to offer for you guys on Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
Hey, we'll be back here on Monday. We got a lot to talk about from NBA All-Star Weekend. I am super excited for Steph and Sabrina. All of that and more. We'll talk about it on Monday right here. Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show, and we will see you Monday morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any